Welcome to the April 2016 meeting of the Women in Technology virtual chapter of PASS. Today we'll hear from Catherine Wilhelmsen as she presents her topic, From Accidental to Efficient Data Warehouse Developer. Catherine is a technical architect and developer focusing on data warehousing and business intelligence. She mainly works with ETL, SSIS, Bimi, and T-SQL development. She enjoys both programming and data visualization, and she loves to learn and share knowledge. Outside of work, she's active in the PASS, Bimi, and SQL Server communities as a Microsoft Data Platform MVP, Bimi Hero Certified Expert, speaker, blogger, volunteer, board member of the Microsoft Data Platform User Group Norway, and is the main organizer of SQL Saturday Oslo. Thank you for joining us today, Catherine.
Thank you for that introduction, Kathy, and thank you for inviting me to speak for the PASS Women in Technology virtual chapter as well. I'm really excited to be here today. So since you gave me that nice introduction, I'm going to quickly skip over this slide here. My name is Katrine Wilhelmsen, or Catherine Wilhelmsen. You can find me on Twitter at Catherine W. No E in the middle there. That's the weird Norwegian spelling of my name. I blog at catherinewilhelmsen.net. And let's move on to the actual topic here today. So I'm a data warehouse architect right now, but once upon a time I was just graduated from university as a programmer. And the first week of work, my boss came to me and he told me that we want you to start working on this data warehouse project. And I was super excited. I told him, like, that's great. I'm really excited about this. And the first thing I did when I came home that day was to do this. I Googled what is a data warehouse because I had no clue what that was. I'd never heard of a dimensional model of dimensions or fact tables, no clue what an ETL process was. So I kind of just got thrown into this, the whole accidental data warehouse developer thing. And at first, at least for the first couple of weeks, I had all these new tools and programs I had to learn, and I kind of felt like this poor guy sitting right here. I had lots of buttons, 10,000 things, new menus I had to learn and figure out. I was randomly pushing things, trying to see what happened, and errors happened, but I learned so much from it. But that's not the developer that I wanted to be. I wanted to be more like the programmer that I had been for a while at school, where I learned to not repeat myself to work efficiently. And I wanted to be more like this super efficient guy right here who has, you know, complete control over all the buttons, doing all the things at the same time. And I'm still not there yet, but I've learned a lot along the way, and I picked up a lot of tools and tips. And this is kind of the reason I put this presentation together. I wanted to share some of the things I've learned along the way, so hopefully more people will spend less time to get to that kind of master, alien, super efficient guy. So we're going to cover three main topics here today. The first one is some basic things in SSMS. The second one is things you can do to improve your queries and how you can analyze and look at that, because that will also help you to become a more efficient developer. And the third thing, my favorite, is using Bimi for SSIS. So the first tip I have here today is visual information in SSMS. And this is really important to me because I'm a lazy developer. I'm not going to say anyone else is lazy. I've insulted people saying that before, but I'm lazy and I hate doing the same things over and over again. And I kind of want to just see what I'm doing without having to search for it on the screen. So the first thing I do when I connect to a database in SSMS is go to the options and set the custom color for that connection. And in this case here, I'm using a bright green color for my development environment. And this allows me to, really easily see which environment I'm working in. So I set usually yellow for test and red for production. So if I have that bright red bar at the bottom of my screen, I know that I need to be really careful which queries I write. The second one is I like to change the status bar and tab text. So in this case here, you can see the pink example is changing the status bar content. And I like to keep most of my information in there, in that green bar on the screen. So I can see the database name, I can see the server name, the login name, the row count, and execution time. So all of my information is there if I need it. And then I like to remove all of that information from the tabs in SSMS. So the only thing I like to keep is basically just the file name. That allows me to have more tabs open that I can see at the same time as well, which is another positive thing. And when I'm working with these tabs, I like to have multiple tabs open at the same time. So I usually split these into different tab groups. So I have a couple of vertical tab groups. This kind of depends on the size of your screen. I like to have 2 or 3 things open at the same time. So when I start writing a query, start executing that, I immediately switch to another window and start doing something there. It's just a way for me, and also if you want to compare results or things like that, you can do that. You can also split them in this horizontal way, which is maybe not the way I prefer to do it, but it's completely up to you. Just having multiple things at the screen at the same time. In this case, I'm having 2 things in my development environment. I could easily have one for my test and one for my development environment, for example. Just things that really help me work more efficiently. And one thing that the first time I actually saw that you could split one query in 2 windows, that was a big aha moment for me. So if you're working with long stored procedures, for example, where you want to see something at the top of the query while you're working on something at the bottom, or just a really complex query, like this example from AdventureWorks, you can click that little button on the right-hand side there, or go to Window Split. And you can actually work on the query in 2 windows at the same time. So if you start typing things in the upper window, you will see it being changed in the lower window. Or you can just see kind of 2 different views of your query. And this is super useful if you have like a select statement, you want to see what you have, and then something else going on at the bottom. So the next one is a couple of different shortcuts. And there are a couple of different ways you can do that in SSMS. The first one is using query shortcuts. In this example, you can go to Tools, Options, Environment, Keyboard, and Query Shortcuts. And some of these are already defined. I think SP Help, SP Who, and SP Lock, and SP Tables, SP Databases. A couple of these you can't change. But there are some options starting on Control+3 and Control+4, I think, where you can add your own queries. And this is super efficient if you want to, for example, just quickly see the first couple of rows from a table or get the count. Just a quick note there, don't use count star for large tables, but for small tables in your development environment, that's a good way to use it. So what you can do here is inside your query window, you could just select the name of a table, for example, and then click Control+4 in this example to get the row count without actually having to type select count from. Again, it saves you a couple of seconds here and there, but if it's something you do a lot, then it's going to save you a lot of time. You also have a whole bunch of different keyboard shortcuts. Not the query shortcuts, but the keyboard shortcuts. And this is something that I do all the time. The first thing I do when I start working in a new environment is to remove the shortcuts that I always accidentally click. So in my case, I always hit F11 for some reason, and then I start debugging something, and I don't want that. So I go into the keyboard shortcuts and I remove that one. And then I assign shortcuts that I use frequently instead. In my case, it's dependent on an add-in that I'm using or a separate tool, which I will get to later. But you can kind of look through all of these different menus and see what do you do a lot. Can you assign a keyboard shortcut to that so you don't have to go and click into menus or things like that. And there's a whole list on MZN that you can go to and look at all the existing keyboard shortcuts so you can start using them. And a couple of my favorites here today that basically all you need are these keys here. Shift, Tab, Control, Alt, Home, and Page Up, Page Down, and the arrows. If you kind of start using them and you start experimenting with them, and you can, try clicking Control Shift and see what happens if you press a random key. A lot of these things I discovered by accident, that I accidentally clicked something and I discovered that, oh wow, that's a really cool feature. But these are the magic keys. You can do so many things with these keys. So just a quick couple of examples here. You can show and hide query results by pressing Control R, which is, it's really useful when you're writing a query, you get the results, and you just want to hide that window because it takes up too much space on your screen. Or you can even, toggle the full screen, so you can, if you're working with a large query or you just want to focus on that one, or even if you're looking into presenting and speaking yourself, then you can toggle full screen and just focus on the code and things you're doing right there. Press Shift Alt Enter and it will expand. Very simple, very useful. By using Control Tab and the arrows, or your mouse if you prefer that, I like to use the keyboard as much as possible, you can cycle through the different windows that you have active in SSMS. So this is kind of the same as Alt Tab in Windows if you're using that, and then Control Tab inside of SSMS. It's a really great way to just quickly move between the files you have open or the active tool windows you have open, in this case Object Explorer and registered servers. And one thing that I learned that was super useful for me was while you're writing a query, if you have IntelliSense enabled, but you're not currently in the correct database, IntelliSense won't work, obviously. So if you're writing something and you see that IntelliSense is not working, instead of having to move your hand to the mouse, go up and click on and the database connections and choose the right one, you can just press Control-U, start typing the name of the database, and then enter, and then continue typing in your query. So just a quick thing that has at least saved me quite a lot of time. This is probably one of my favorites. The first time I discovered this, that you could do this in SSMS, and I think this was a new feature in SSMS in SQL Server 2012 with the release of SSMS there, where you can use Alt and then just drag with your mouse, or Alt, Shift, and the arrow, so you can select things in columns instead of selecting the whole line at the same time. And this has been so useful for me because when I started writing queries, when I was fresh out of school, I started writing this, and I wanted to, add something before each line. I would, type it, press arrow down, type it again, press arrow down. Now I won't have to. You can just select the whole column, press it once, and it will be written on all the lines. Super useful. And also the comment, uncomment. Hopefully everyone knows that you have the nice buttons on the toolbar by default that you can use to comment and uncomment blocks of code. But I've seen many people who actually go in and do the same thing as I did in the start. You press dash dash and arrow down and arrow left and dash dash, and you do that over and over again to comment out these different lines. And you don't even have to do that. You can just no matter where your cursor is on the line, just press Control-K, Control-C, and then it will comment the line or uncomment the line by using Control-K and Control-U. So by really starting to learn these keyboard shortcuts, you will really speed up your development. And one of the things, I've actually learned this this year, is the clipboard ring in SSMS, and this is a really cool feature. This allows you to save the last 20 things you copy, the text you copy, and then you can use Control-Shift-V, SARGable Clipboard Ring, to go through all of those and then paste the one you need. So you won't actually have to go back, copy it again, and then paste it, and then go and copy the other thing and paste that. It's all saved in the clipboard ring, and then you can just cycle through that and paste the text you need through the clipboard ring instead. Again, the first time I saw this, it was a super aha moment, and it saved me a lot of time since. The next thing is you can use a couple of different add-ins to search in SSMS. Now there is the native search feature in SSMS that you can use in the Object Explorer, but my favorite tool for this is, it's a free tool, it's Redgate SQL Search. And as you can see from the screenshot here, you can search on all different kinds of object types. You can search through tables, views, procedures, constraints, triggers, functions, and even SQL Server jobs, agent jobs. And you can search through one or more databases at the same time. And what you do here is you basically just search for something. In this example here, if I search for color, I search for tables and views and things like that, it will show me a list of everywhere you can find color. And you can choose to click on exact match if you know exactly what you're searching for, or just inside something. And it will show you the code, for example, the view definition if you have color in there. And the cool thing about this is when you search for this, you can just right-click and click on Select an Object Explorer to go to that item without having to look through all of that yourself. So this could be really useful if you just learn how to use search for something, select an Object Explorer instead of having to go through all of that manually. It's a free tool. You can find it on Redgate's websites. There are a couple of different alternatives to Redgate. Now, the search tool is actually free, but there are other different ones, like Apex SQL has another free tool, and there are also different options, as you can see on the screen here. So this is kind of what you prefer to work with, or maybe if your company has licenses like we do for Redgate SQL Prompt, we do SQL Search as well. But look through these, test them out, see what kind of works for you and what you like, and then start using something instead of nothing. The next one is using templates and snippets in SSMS. So the first one, templates. If you haven't seen this before, it's a really nice feature the first time you actually go through this. So you can go and check out the template browser. You just press on Control-Alt-T. You can also find it from the menu. And there are so many templates here that are ready for you to just drag and drop into a query window and start using that instead of having to type all of this on your own. You don't have to memorize it, and you don't have to look up anything online. So in my example here, I've just dragged the Create Index Basic template onto my query window, and it shows me how to create that index. And you can also create your own templates like this. So if you have something that you use a lot, for example, a specific way of writing stored procedures or views or something like that, you can create your own templates. And you can add template parameters to these templates. And this is kind of where the real power comes into templates. So you can add these template parameters, and when you open up or add that template, you press Control-Shift-M, and it will pop up this window for you where you specify the actual values. And everywhere that template parameter is in your file, it will be replaced with the actual value that you provide. So if you use database name 17 different times in your script, it will be replaced all of those 17 places. Very powerful, very cool. And you can also set default values for these, so you don't have to type all of it every single time you want to replace the parameters. You can also use snippets. In SSMS by default, they have a couple of simple snippets. In this case, the upper example here, where you can, again, create an index basic or an XML index, a lot of different options. You just have to kind of go through these yourself and see what's available for you. But again, press Control-K, Control-X, and that will insert a snippet for you instead of having to even, open up a menu and drag and drop. You can do it all by using your keyboard. And you can also use these different kinds of code snippets that you can surround the text you've currently marked, and then you can insert, for example, begin, end, if, else, and while loops around the code you're currently working on. So again, it saves you a couple of seconds here and there. Very nice little feature. So there are for snippets and formatting, there are other programs that are probably way more advanced than what you can find in SSMS. And again, I'm using Redgate SQL Prompt here. That is a licensed tool. There are free options as well, and a couple of other licensed tools. Again, you have to kind of go through and see which ones that you prefer. They have a couple of different options, but they're mostly similar in the features here. So I thought that I would just show you a couple of things inside of Redgate SQL Prompt to show you kind of where I save time and really work efficiently. So if I switch to my SSMS here, the first thing I want to do is just show you how you can use the column picker in SQL Prompt. So in this case, I just have a simple query here. So instead of using the star, I press Control Space, and that will give me a whole list of all these different columns here in my table. So I can use my arrows here and click one of these and click Enter. If I do that, it will insert that for me. Or I can choose the column picker, which is the one down here, and that allows me to select multiple columns at the same time. So in this case here, I don't really want them in table order. I want to see them alphabetically, for example. And then again, I can just use my keyboard and say I want this one, so I press space, and then this and this and this. So these 4 columns here, press enter, and that will insert that for me in the query. It's a super simple way of doing that. And the same way, if I start typing something, it will automatically filter that list for me. I can also, really easily, if I just press star, and you will see that little thing hover over there, press tab to expand wildcard. If I want all the columns, I just press tab after I press the star. And for someone who is not used to working with tools like this kind of looks like magic the first time they see it. Again, very, very simple way of writing queries faster. So that's the first one I wanted to show you. The next one here is where you can actually select things in the Object Explorer from a query. Now, I mentioned that through SQL Search earlier, but you can also do that just from the query here. So you can right-click and click on Select an Object Explorer, or just press Control F12, and that will automatically, down here, select that for you. So if you're writing a query somewhere, something someone else has written and you're not really sure where to find it, you don't want to dig through your Object Explorer, this is just a simple way of navigating to that. And it works for most things. So you can navigate to indexes or keys and things like that. Next one here is where you can automatically qualify object names. So in my example here, I have a couple of different things I've pulled out from 2 different tables, a sales order detail and the sales order header, but I don't really know which table these things are from. So instead of having to look through that and figure out myself, I can just mark the whole thing here and press Control B, Control Q. And as you will see here, it will automatically add these table aliases for me. So now I can see, okay, this is from the header, these are from the details, and this again is from the header. So if you're working with queries that you might not be that familiar with, this can be a great tool to really simplify your queries for reading. And the next one is, we're all super picky about how we write our code, I'm sure. We all want it to look a specific way, and that's the great thing about tools like SQL Prompt or Apex SQL or SSMS Tools Pack. You can have all these different shortcuts to clean up your code. So in my case here, you can, for example, apply the casing by pressing Control B and then Control U. That will automatically change it to uppercase in my example. If you want it to lowercase, you can just change the settings and then it will be lowercase for you. You can also remove brackets by pressing Control B, Control B. In my head, that's by brackets. I don't like the brackets. So that's an easy way of doing that. And now that semicolons are going to be required, you also always want to end your queries with a semicolon. Now, in this case, you would probably just type the semicolon, but there is a shortcut for that as well, Control B, Control C. That will add the semicolon for everything you've selected. So if you have multiple statements, multiple queries, it will do that for all of them for you. And there is a shortcut to do all of this in just one operation instead of the way I did it here and now where I did 3 different operations. You can actually just do it in one operation by pressing Control K, Control Y. And in this case here, this query is completely unreadable. You can, go through it, but it could be easier to start digging into this if the code has been cleaned up. So if I now press Control K, Control Y, you will see here everything is being updated for me without me having to do anything. So things have been, uppercased in my example. It's been indented. We've added all the table aliases and all of these things that basically just makes it easier to look at a query. So a couple of things here, and these are features that you will find in most of the tools, both the licensed ones and the free ones. And another one which can be really useful when you start working with things is this feature called Summarize Script. So instead of having to, go through all of this code yourself, especially for, stored procedures or things like that, you can just press on Control B, Control S, and that will pop up this toolbox here that will show you what's actually happening. So I can drill down here. I can see, okay, it's an alter procedure. It has a try catch. Inside the try, I have a couple of different if statements. And inside the catch, I have print, execute, and return. And this is just a really easy way of understanding what you're working with without having to dig through the code. So it can save you some time if you're working on large projects or in teams if someone else has handed over code to you. So that was just a very quick demo of Redgate SQL prompt. And like I said, I'll just show you this one here again. There are different options for you out there. So take a look at these. You will get the slide deck after the session is over, so you can download it from the past website, and then you can just click on these links and go through that yourself. So the next step, moving on from formatting and snippets and things like that, is just kind of working with the SSMS features. And for me, not being a DBA, but being a data warehouse developer, I did not know what registered servers was until a couple of years after I started working with this. If you're coming from the world of DBAs, you might already know about this, but for me this was a really great feature when I discovered it. Registered servers allows you to save and group servers. So in my example here, I just have different environments for my data marts. So I have my development, my test, and then my production data mart. And also for like the data warehouse layer, development test, and then the data warehouse. And just by looking at this window, I can see, okay, is the server up and running, or is the service on? And I can also, you can manage the services from this window. So if something has been accidentally shut down when it shouldn't be, you can just right-click on that, go to service control, click start or stop or restart or whatever, just things you can do here. And this might not be something that you do in your production environment, but for me working locally with these different environments on my own computer, I can just easily manage these services from inside of SSMS. Very simple, and again, the visual tools of, or seeing this visually by the green icons and the red icons, it's very great for me. And another cool thing is that you can actually write multi-server queries that you can execute against all the different servers in one of these groups. So if you right-click on the group and click on New Query, you can write a query against all of those servers. And then there is an option for displaying the status bar, the one that was green in my earlier examples. So for group connections, I set this to a deep pink. It's just a color that really stands out. So when you execute these queries, you'll see that down at the bottom there it says data warehouse, that's the name of my server group. And then you can choose, okay, do you want to see these as 3 different results, or you can even combine them into one result with multiple rows. So it could be a nice way to, query your development and test servers to see if something has changed, or I'm guessing that you can come up with a billion different use cases for this yourself. But the option is there, and it's a really powerful feature again. Now moving on from, SSMS tools and tips over to writing queries. And this is probably something that many of you already know, but I didn't know about this when I first started writing queries. What are these SARGable queries? And they're basically that you're writing queries that can efficiently seek using the indexes that are on that table. And you can compare it to finding a person in a phone book, and for these examples, we'll pretend that we still use phone books and don't have everything saved on our smartphones, just to give you an example here. So if things are sorted, you have an index on this, on the name. So if you want to find all the rows where the name starts with a T, it's really easy. For humans, you go from A, B, C, and all the way down, so you're kind of guessing, okay, T is at the end of these rows. And sure enough, it's easy to pick out the ones that start with a T. So that is a SARGable query. The index can easily find the rows you need to find. If you write non-SARGable queries, then the query has to scan each and every row in the table to find the correct rows. And again, just keeping that phone book analogy here, where if you want to find all the rows where the name contains AL, just anywhere inside the name. So this is a query where you type like %AL%. And in this case here, you would actually have to go through all of these here one by one to see, okay, does this one contain? No. This one? Yes. And it's not easy to find that. And the same way as when you're writing these queries in SSMS, if you know the indexes you're using, write SARGable queries, and that will just speed up your queries because you can actually take advantage of those indexes. So again, something to be aware of. And this is a topic that you can dive into for a full day, I'm guessing. But Rob Farley did a great session on this at SQL Bits a couple of years ago. So if you click on this link, you can watch a whole hour of how to write your queries faster. And again, this is part of, becoming a more efficient developer, knowing your data, knowing how to use it, and knowing how to write queries so you don't have to wait for 10 minutes for your results. So the next step is when you've written your queries and you kind of want to analyze those queries, you can look at the execution plans. So you can display the estimated execution plans or include the actual execution plans before or after you execute a query. Both of these are actually estimated execution plans, but that's kind of a detail you can look at that at other sessions. There are many free sessions and webinars out there on execution plans. But just to quickly cover these, it's a simple way of seeing how your query will be executed. So in this case here, you can see what's happening, what is actually taking the most time, and things like that. And the default in SSMS might not be the best way to kind of visualize these execution plans. So there's another free tool that I love called, actually I can show you here first, Details and Tooltips from SSMS, and also Details and Properties will tell you a lot more about this. But again, you want to, or at least I want to, kind of visualize this without having to dig into these properties. And then you can use something like SQL-centric Plan Explorer. And this is a free tool. There is also a licensed version of this, but the free tool is really powerful. And that will just show you in SSMS kind of, okay, where do I grab the most data from? How is the flow? And you can see the thickness of the lines and also the coloring, like in the next example here, the coloring where you might need to focus on optimizing your queries and your tables. And there's also an option here where you can actually post your execution plans to SQLperformance.com and get help and feedback on that from some of the best experts in the world. And there's a little button there called Anonymize that allows you to, remove all the sensitive data before you post it. Again, completely free, and these are great people in the community that wants to help you do this on their free time. There's also lots of books and sessions on this, but one that is free from Redgate is SQL Server Execution Plans by Grant Fritchie. This is a really great book. It will help you get started from the basics of execution plans and how you can actually optimize your queries using execution plans. So take a look at that book or one of the other free books, or probably a lot of other free books in the community. Next one is when you're moving on to query statistics. The one that I'm guessing most of you already know about, you can do statistics I/O, so you can check out the logical reads, the physical reads, kind of a way to tune your queries and see if you can improve and reduce the number of logical reads. That will help improve your query. You can also do the same if you want to check the time. Now, this might differ very different from your development to your production environment, but it is a way of, seeing how much time you actually spend on executing these different queries. So you can use that by setting statistics time on or setting I/O on. You can also combine them into one single query like this. Set statistics time, comma, I/O on. This is, again, something I recently learned. Instead of writing the two separate queries, just combine them like these. Now, again, looking at these screenshots here, it might not always be that simple, especially if you're executing a lot of different queries, to see and kind of compare these different executions. So there is a tool called statisticsparser.com by Richie Rump. It's a free tool online that you can use. Just copy and paste the actual results that you get in your message window in SSMS, paste it into the website, and it will just format that for you in this beautiful little table that you can use to sort and compare things. It's very easy to use compared to the SSMS. So take a look at that as well. If you want to just work in SSMS, there is one thing that took me a couple of years before I realized actually existed, and that is something called Include Client Statistics. So you just press Shift-Alt-S or go to Query, Include Client Statistics. And what this allows you to do is kind of track, I think it's the last 10 queries you execute in one single window, like this one here. So you will see you have trial 3, 2, 1, and then the average. And you can see all of these different statistics here that it looks at for you. Now, depending on what you're actually looking for, some of this might be useful, some of it might not be useful. But for me, if you want to write queries, I used to spend a lot of time writing, number of rows returned on Post-it notes or in Notepad++ or something like that. And then I realized I don't even have to do that. I can just turn on client statistics and SSMS, and it will track all this for me, so I can easily see, okay, has the number of rows changed? If I changed something in a stored procedure, for example, what about the execution time? Is it going way up or way down? Things like that. It's a very, very nice way of just tracing things while working in SSMS. And then when you're writing all of these queries and you're actually executing them, things can happen. And again, this was something it took me a couple of years before I actually started using, because I had no clue how to monitor the queries I wrote until I found this script called SB Who Is Active by Adam Mechanic, which is a really great script that you can install. You can see the query, the URL to his blog there. So what this allows you to do is just see what's happening on your server right now. So in this case, okay, I'm doing an update and an insert and a select from the same table at the same time, and this causes locking and blocking, and I get all of this different information that you can dig through. And I've learned so much from this because I've had to look up, weight information and just kind of dig through all of this. If you're working in a shared environment, it could be really useful to see, okay, is someone else doing something that is blocking my query, or am I doing something that's blocking someone else? And then you can just click on the SQL text column there to see the actual query being executed at the same time. And this can be really useful also for DBAs who wants to, see what's happening at on their servers. And like I said, there's so much information that you can get out of these different scripts. There are lots of different parameters you can pass. So you can see how long it's been running from. You can see the wait info, which sessions are blocking, is it running, is it suspended. You can even see where the query is being executed from. So if it's from SSMS or if it's from inside SSIS, for example, you can also see that. So a really great tool just for monitoring what's going on. And again, that's a way of, you don't have to sit an hour waiting for something to happen because you don't know if it's being blocked, is it just taking long, things like that. And then the final one, which is probably my favorite topic here now, using Biml to generate your SSIS packages. Now this is moving away from SSMS and the queries, so this is more for those who are actually working with SSIS for data warehouse projects. Biml is a business intelligence markup language. It's an easy to read and write XML language that allows you to generate SSIS packages from metadata instead of creating all of these SSIS packages by hand. And the only thing you need for this is a free add-on called Bits Helper. This is completely free. It's also very useful for SSIS projects, for example. It has a lot of different options, so even if you don't use Biml, take a look at this add-on and install it if you can do that in your environment, because it will help you a lot with other tasks. But for now, I'm just going to show you how you can use this for Biml projects. So this is what you can use if you're using BIDS or SSDTBI. You can also use an online editor called Biml Online. It's a free online editor, currently in beta, but they're working on getting that released very soon. So the way this works is that you have one or more Biml files with Biml code, and you run that through the Biml compiler, and that will generate all the SSIS packages for you. So just by writing one BIML file, you can generate hundreds or even thousands of SSIS packages. And if you have a background from SSIS, you know that creating all of these packages by hand, it just takes a lot of time, and you have to do the same things over and over again, even if you're using templates. But with BIML, it can save a huge amount of time, especially for data warehouse projects. So this is my first reaction the first time I saw this. Yeah, of course I can create 200 SSIS packages. What do you want me to do after lunch? And this was like a drastic improvement for my work day working with SSIS daily. So it's really, really simple to read and write. Now this kind of does, you kind of need to know SSIS for this to make sense. But in this case, we're creating two simple packages called empty package 1 and empty package 2. It's very easy to read and write, and that's the whole point of it. And just to kind of look at another example here, the way BIML translates to SSIS is basically one-to-one. So in this case here, I have the gray example showing an execute SQL task named truncate person with some different options there, and you can see that's being translated into the execute SQL task in SSIS on the right side. And the same with the data flow with the name load person. And if we go into the data flow, you will again see that just by reading this code, looking at the output in SSIS, you can kind of figure out what's going on from your code. And then the great thing about this is you don't really have to hard code all of this. You can use something called BIML script, which is C# or VB.NET code blocks, and you can add that to your BIML code so you can import your database metadata and your structure, and then you can use all of that from your existing tables to loop over the tables and columns, and kind of for each table you maybe want to create an SSIS package, and then just replace all of those static hard-coded values with expressions instead. And now you're suddenly going from creating all of these hard-coded SSIS packages one by one into creating a pattern that you can use to generate lots of different SSIS packages. So in this case here, just a bit more code to show you. The highlighted things here is you create a connection node that you connect to your database. So a typical example from data warehouse environments is you have a staging environment where you just copy your source data from the source database into a staging database. And for this, BIML is extremely powerful. You can just connect to your source database, and then on the second line of code there that's highlighted, get the database schema. It just pulls out all the metadata about your tables and your columns and things like that. And then you can loop through all of those and say, for each table in my AdventureWorks database, I want to create an SSIS package called load and then the name of the table. And again, this is just super powerful when you use it for especially staging environments in data warehousing, or if you're, for example, loading subsets into different data marts, things like that. So I can show you really quickly how this works as well before we wrap up here today. So I'll move over to my Visual Studio here, and I will open up. I'm going to skip the really basic demos here today. There's a lot of great webinars available out there for those of you who are interested in digging into BIML, but just to show you how powerful this really is, I'm going to open up one BIML file here called load all tables. And like I showed you in the example earlier, we have a couple of lines of C# code here. There's not really a lot you need to learn. You can just copy and paste this. And then we go through and we have our SSIS connections, and then we create all of our packages. So instead of going through all of this code now, I'm just going to show you what happens when I right-click on this and click on Generate SSIS Packages. Now it's going to go into my database, grab all the metadata. You can see it working down here. Grab all of that metadata and generate all the SSIS packages for me. And just by, we'll wait until Visual Studio responds again. Still working. So we have probably, what's this, 60 lines of code or something in this file. It's going to generate all of these packages for me. hopefully it's going to work. Here we go. So in my case, I have all of these packages created from a previous run, so it's just asking me, do you want to overwrite all of these packages? Yes, I want to do that. And then we'll see up here in our SSIS packages, just by executing this one simple file, I now have one package for each of my 72 tables. So if you are an SSIS developer or you're working with someone who's working with SSIS, then absolutely look into using Biml for your project, especially for data warehouse projects where you have staging environments and things like that. So you can also go online to learn more about Biml. Like I said when I started this session, I'm basically just touching upon a couple of different topics here, and then you'll have to go and dig into the things that you want to learn more about. So if you want to learn more about Biml, you can go to bimlscript.com. They have this full learning path available for you there. It's completely free. And then you can go through things like what is Biml, learn about the tools, learn about why you want to automate and create patterns instead of hand creating SSIS packages. And then just go through all of these things until you create your automated staging layer for data warehouse projects in particular. So it's all in there. And then when you start actually using this, you can do all of your Biml on Monday and take a Biml break the rest of the week because you're done before lunch on Monday. So again, really powerful. And just to quickly summarize what we went through here today. We looked at from the basics when you start installing SSMS, looking at how you can create, visual things so you don't have to search through the screen to figure out what connection you're using and so on. Over through how you can improve your queries and learn how to write queries and execute queries faster and how you can track that. And then over to SSIS for those of you who are working with that in your data warehouse projects. And I know that I started with this session saying that this is fast-paced. There's not really a lot of details here, but check out my website, catherinewilhelmsen.net/efficient. There are links to all the resources there. I'll upload the slide deck after the session is over. Lots of different links and resources. And you will also get the slide deck from the past Women in Technology website after the session is done. So hopefully some of this was useful to you. If it wasn't useful to you, then maybe you have some coworkers or some junior developers that you might want to share this with, because many of these things are really easy to forget as soon as you start learning them. But if there's anything at all, like I said, the slide deck will be available, and feel free to get in touch with me. You can email me or you can tweet me. If you want to, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Just say that you attended my session here today. And I really hope that you at least learned something new here today. So that's it for me. I'm going to wrap up here now and just pass it over back to Kathy and see if we have any questions.
So that was fantastic, Catherine. It's amazing whenever someone like myself has worked with SQL Server for 18 years, but yet there's still things about Management Studio that I don't know or have forgotten about. So this was fantastic. There were no questions in the question box, so I'm not sure. Oh, I see one. Some people are saying thank you.
And thank you for attending.
Yes, so some people are saying thank you. They've learned a lot today, and I can verify that for myself as well. Again, we'll get the, Catherine, if you can send me the slide deck, and we'll get the recording probably within the next 24 hours. We'll get those out on the Women in Technology virtual chapter site.
Yep, I'll send it to you right after we finish up here.
Okay. So I guess if, I don't know if we should stick around for another minute or so to see if anyone else has any questions. I think you did such a great job of explaining everything that that is probably why we don't have a ton of questions. You did an excellent job.
Thank you so much. And again, thank you to everyone who attended here today or who are watching this recording afterwards. Like I said, any questions at all after this, feel free to get in touch with me. And I hope you all have a great day.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and close up, and thank you so much, and we'll be talking soon, I hope.
Yep.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.